All right, back here on Inside Wrestling Radio. On the damn telephone, we have Cueball Carmichael, and Cueball really has been an interesting guy to talk to. And, man, it's good to have you on the program. We were talking a little bit during the break about some of the things that you've been saying on your Facebook page, and very interesting stuff. For those of you who haven't seen Cueball's writings, his Facebook page is just Cueball Carmichael, Cueball Carmichael. And, man, really, really interesting stuff up there. And you told me during the break, Cueball, you're writing a book. Tell me about the book.
Well, the book's called Dreams, Drugs, and Death, the real inside story of professional wrestling. And, you know, unfortunately, any of us, Rikki, that have been around a long time like you and I have, we've seen a lot of guys come into business, and we've seen some guys walk out, but we've seen an awful lot of them go out the other way.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's about that, the pitfalls of wrestling, the things to stay away from. You know, when I ran a school and I trained Joey Mercury and Christian York and Otto Schwantz, one of my big things was, you know, I tried to warn them about what happens out there in the wrestling business. And, you know, you can warn people all you want, but when they get out there and they get involved in it, it's a different story. So it talks a little bit about that. There's some rants and raves in there, kind of like my Facebook page, of course. And it talks a lot about the state of pro wrestling 30 years ago or so when I got in, a lot of the veterans got in, what's transpired in that 30 years, and primarily what's really happened in the last 10 years that have changed the business. So it's a good read. It's a self-published book. I had an author that wanted to buy the book, but they wanted to do editing changes. They wanted to tone it down. Their exact quote was, "It's way too raw for mainstream." I said, well, then it's perfect. I'll publish it myself because I don't want it toned down. I want it to be coarse and raw and to the point. And, you know, the boys, it's really written for the boys, and the guys in the business that get it will get it, and the guys in the business that don't get it, they'll buy it and ask for an autograph, and it'll go on a shelf.
Yeah, right. And when can we look for it, Cueball?
It's going to be available at BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com. It's published through Author House in Minnesota. You can get copies directly through me, autographed at a discount rate on my Facebook page. It should be available on or about April 1st.
Absolutely. Great, man. And tell you what, when that thing's released, I'm going to have you back on the program, and we'll talk about it when it's out. Is that cool?
Sounds great, man. I'll get you a limited edition, first edition, get it autographed, get it out to you. You can read it over so we can talk about it.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome. Can't wait for that. Man, let's talk a little bit about your WWE/F time. And for a guy who trained old school and who loved the business growing up, had to be a thrill going into the Fed, man. Tell me about it.
Well, it was a thrill for me because I think you would think that it would stand out, but it blends after a while. I believe my first match for them was at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
And for me as a kid growing up in upstate New York, when it was then the WWWF,
right.
The big thing was they wrestled out of the Garden, and a couple months later those matches made TV. So it was a big thrill for me. It was nice. I remember the first night I was out there, I think I wrestled Gilbert or something.
Yeah.
And, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, there's 25 or 26,000 people here. If it goes on Wired or Jack, which it did, I said, gosh, more people's going to see me in this one night than have seen me in my whole 14-year career at this point, which is, it's a good feeling, but when you think about it, it maybe isn't such a good feeling that you worked all those years and taking all those bumps and stuff for the sake of one night. You get more exposure than you've ever had. But it was a thrill. I've talked to guys like Bull Payne, who's a good friend of mine, and the guy I wrestled is Mike Maverick. Mike Howell is a good friend of mine, and those guys were there, and both those guys were in WCW, and we talked about working in front of 25,000, which for me was easier than working in front of 25, which we've all done at times.
Yeah.
And but it's a big thrill. It's a big stage. It's different. I learned, for me, I was up there in 96, 97, 98, 99, and I was there when they were getting crushed by WCW in the ratings. There was a lot of tension in the locker room. The old saying, "You can cut it with a knife," is absolutely true. Pillman was going through some stuff, and I was friends with Jim Neidhart, so when I got there, I kind of always dressed in the locker room with Jimmy and Brett and Owen and those guys and stuff. And I was there when the thing went down between Brett and Sean, and it was not a great time to be there. I mean, it's always a great time to be there, but there were better times than others. But I can tell you that I learned really that success is truly about the journey, maybe not the destination, because the guy that got me in, Tom Brandy, was up there. He was there at Salvatore Sincere, and then they went to Tom Brandy, and a lot of guys weren't being used as well as they could have been used, and there was a lot of tension and discord and things like that. And it was great to be there. And people asked me about my experience with Vince, and Shane and Stephanie were just coming in then, and I said, hey, he was nice to me, and his checks always cashed. So, there's something to be said for that when you work for wrestling promoters where they leave the building before you get paid, or they try to sneak out, or they try to stiff you, and you got to jack them up and take their wallet out of their pocket. So, never had to do that with McMahon. So that's the good side of the coin there.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for a guy who'll pay you, no doubt about that.
There's some stories, brother. I don't think they're suitable for radio, but there's some stories.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, my friend.
It's bad when you have to take your belt off, put it around a promoter's neck, cinch it down tight from behind, while another guy takes his wallet out and takes your payday out of it. But hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely. Hey, Cueball, tell me a little bit about the IPWA. That's your promotion that you run, correct?
Well, I ran that for about 5.5 years out of Northern Virginia when I lived right there in Alexandria outside of Washington, D.C., and I ran a school with it. And, we had a great talent roster. I had the Headbangers before they went to Titan. I had Balls Mahoney, Axel Rotten was a regular. I had a lot of guys that went on. Tom Brandy was regular, Steve Carino, Lance Diamond. Julio De Niro, Jimmy Cicero. The talent on that roster, my theory was this: I'm going to always book guys that are better than me. I probably was the worst guy on my own roster. But you know what? Is every time we had a show, and we ran monthly for 5 years, we had TV for 3. We had the #1 rated show on a sports network in metropolitan Washington, D.C., and it was because of the guys that were there, that were working there for me, that were wrestling there for me. They were just so talented, and so many of them went on to great careers in wrestling. And I was really fortunate, and it's cliche to say blessed, but I was really blessed that I had these guys and they were available. I had a good relationship with Smoky Mountain, so I could bring guys in. Buddy Landell wrestled there, the Iron Sheik, Brutus Beefcake, Jim Neidhart, King Kong Bundy was a regular in the promotion. So I was really, really lucky. I had great talent, people that you could learn from. If you were coming up, we'd bring an occasional guy in. I know Joey Mercury started there as Joey Matthews. Christian York started there. Otto Schwantz started there. So it launched a lot of careers of very successful wrestlers. Matt Hardy used to come up and wait in the wings to be able to, hopefully somebody didn't show up and he could wrestle for me. C.W. Anderson was a regular there. So, we had some great guys. We really did. And I started it back up this year in North Carolina. We got a big show coming up the 1st of May. It's actually May 2nd, I believe it is, here in northeastern North Carolina. And we're going to bring back in some of the old IPWA talent. Probably, and I'm not patting myself on the back, it's all due to these guys, probably that would be a successful pay-per-view anywhere in the country.
Absolutely.
With the talent coming back that was once in that promotion. So
absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
Cueball, we're really short on time, and there's so much more I want to get to, man, and really, as concisely as you can, as quickly as you can, tell me what's the key to running a successful indie promotion?
It's work. It's legwork, Rikki. You got to get out. You can't put posters on cars. You got to stand at Walmart parking lot. You got to go in with the manager, get a working relationship, Kmart. You got to stand there and put flyers in people's hands. You got to associate yourself with an organization that can benefit, whether it be the high school wrestling team or Children's Miracle Network or the Boys and Girls Club. And you got to support them and get their help. And you got to get community awareness. And you got to go to the police department. And you got to work with the radio. If you're bringing in names, they got to get on the local radio stations. It's a lot. It's so much work to do it and do it right and draw consistently. It's unbelievable. That's the problem. People don't want to work.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely right. Cueball Carmichael, man, listen, so great to have you on the radio with me today. A really interesting guy, and we really only barely scratched the surface of the stuff I wanted to talk to you about. Really quickly, though, before I let you go, talk to me a little bit about your Facebook page, man, and the idea behind going on there and just ranting, man, because some of that stuff is really, really interesting. And as far as I'm concerned, you're dead on the hammer or the nail, man, every time.
Well, thanks, Rikki. You're old school, and I appreciate that. And, the thing with that is they told me one time a long time ago when I was in therapy, which every wrestler should go to if they can afford to, they said, you got to write. You got to keep a journal. You got to write things down. And so I did that for a long time, and I said, you know what? I got to know that I'm not the only guy that feels the way I feel about wrestling.
Yeah.
So I started about 3 or 4 months ago putting it out there, and the response has been unbelievable. I mean, I really feel justified in what I've done. I've got a lot of old school guys support. The people, of course, I want to read it and learn from it. They say it doesn't apply to me, and they just go on to the next post. But it's nice to know there's a lot of us that think the same way about what's happened and happening in wrestling and the way it's going and things like that. So I feel a little vindicated in putting it out there, and I feel a little validated in putting it out there. And both those things feel pretty good as a wrestler. So.
And it should, man, because it really is good stuff. Very, very interesting reads. If any of you haven't read Cueball's stuff, it's worth your while to go up to his page and just read some of those things that he put. I almost want to call them rantings, but they're better than rantings because they're legit. And I mean, they make sense, and they're really well written too. So yeah, take the time to go up to Cueball's page and check that stuff out when you can on Facebook. Cueball Carmichael, man, we're all the way out of time. I've got to have you back on this program quickly in this new year coming up. I mean, it is New Year's coming up here, 2012, in a little less than 24 hours. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, by the way. And
Happy New Year, Rikki. And listen, don't drink and drive, brother.
That's right. That's the key to the success right there. But
Amen.
But yeah, I got to get you back on, man, because there's so much I want to talk to you about as far as your opinion on the current product that the WWE is putting out, TNA. I want to talk to you a lot about Ring of Honor. So yeah, man, we really definitely got to get you back on, and we need to get you back on and talk about that book coming out in April as well.
Sounds good.
Before I let you go, man, anything you need to plug, anything you want to get out there really quickly?
February 11th, I'm at a big NWA National Wrestling Alliance show in Ashoki, North Carolina. Adam Pearce, the world champion, is going to be on there. I've signed with the NWA for the year. I've got 40 shows for him, and I'm hunting Adam Pearce. He's a great guy, good friend, but he's got something I want. I got to go through Damian Wayne to get there, and that's what I'm willing to do. So it's going to be a great night of wrestling.
Awesome.
In Ashoki, North Carolina.
Awesome, man. Listen, again, thank you so much for coming on the radio. Keep putting those posts out, man, because that stuff is eventually going to get to the right people, hopefully. and if it,
we hope.
And if it don't, it's entertaining to me. So.
All right, brother.
All right,
I appreciate that.
Thanks so much for coming on, man. Again, have a great New Year, and then we will be talking to you here on the program again soon.
Sounds good, Rikki. We'll talk to you.
All right, that's going to do it for the interview portion of the program. We'll be right back here to close the show on Inside Wrestling Radio coming up next.